Hey guys, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto was trapped in a Jinjutsu where every woman he knew was madly in love with him? If you enjoy this video, then please like, share, and do comment. And also check the description to original creator of this beautiful creation. So let us start the story.
Naruto panted heavily with his back against a wall to protect it from another round of attacks. Another damn birthday having to fight to survive. Why the hell did he bother to leave his apartment knowing something like this would happen? Since he could remember until now, on his 16th birthday he was harassed or attacked. Attacked without being given the reason of why. Not a real reason. Shit. Even with the training given to him by Saruobi Hiruzen-sama, the third Hokage after the number of near deaths as well as his guardian of 6 years Hitaki Kakashi just wasn't enough here. Especially with the damn restriction seals placed on him and any genin in training not yet graduated from academy trainees to full-fledged shinobi out in the field. In addition to having those damn restrictions, Naruto's were far greater due to his enormous amounts of chakra and the need for him to learn great chakra control. But here, damn it, this was his life on the line. He was able to hold these few genin as well as crazed drunks at bay. The drunks with ease with his current skills and limitations, but other genin as well as a chunin. Once again he was beaten, blooded, near, but this time not broken. Why? Naruto heaved looking around at the four shinobi. Why the hell do all of you continue to blame me for the Kyuubi and the death of everyone in its attack? He screamed. The damn thing is long gone. As always he didn't get an answer. Only the word, die. This is our mission. Mission? This wasn't their damn mission, Naruto thought before his eyes flashed as he saw the lone chunin run through hand signs forcing Naruto to raise, standing straight through the pain ready before. She appeared. From the remnants of leaves swirling in the air, a pair of crimson eyes staring at him from a young, no older than Naruto by at least a few years, but still young, attractive woman with an angular face and nose. Even with her beauty, the line of her thin lips showed a coldness in her face framed by wild black hair. It was another chunin, low-ranked by her age, but still another chunin. And she wasn't here to help. You want to know why you're hated? Then I'll show you. The woman yelled, moving too quick for Naruto to react as chakra-covered hand and fingertips that were forcefully pressed to his forehead. The world around him vanished. Naruto's mindscape, memories. Mind Walker Genjutsu, hidden memories. He fell into darkness, black. It was a damn Genjutsu of some sort, stronger than anything that he could break with his current skill and chakra control. He was trapped as the world around him burst into another time and place so quickly that his head hurt. He was in mid-air seeing chaos, and in the distance a large beast rampaging, striking at buildings within the village with claws and 9 large foxtails as shinobi tried to fight the massive creature. This is what happened 16 years ago on this day, Uzumaki. That woman's voice said all around Naruto, at once the shout gone but her tone as cold as the face he saw. The Kyuubi was as relentless as history had told, swatting away ninja as well as their attacks as if they were nothing. Buildings were crushed underfoot as all of a sudden a large amount of chakra of dark red and blue bubbling in the air in front of the Kyuubi, causing every ninja around to be on guard. The Kyuubi inhaled that menace, malevolent chakra that sent a shiver down Naruto's spine at the idea of what was to come. What was written in history, the fear even when Naruto knew what would happen next. The Kyuubi roared and fired a colossal sphere that vanished and sent an explosion in the distance. Even if Lord Fourth stopped that attack and managed to somehow move the Kyuubi from the village, the damage was done. The malice in her voice palpable. The deaths of families of friends still happened. The area around Naruto flashed again, this time taking him to the ground where what he heard the voice of the cold woman say. It was devastation. The type that even the history of the Kyuubi's attack didn't tell. Or wasn't accounted for. The kind that Naruto shouldn't have known, but here he did. He could see it and felt it. The malice that was in the air. That irradiated from the Kyuubi was still there before it faded to something else. There were bodies beneath broken structures, but now instead of it being night, it was day. It was a new day. Maybe more than a day. It was a search for survivors and casualties. That's right, it was days, maybe weeks from what I know, the woman said, the cold finding venom. I could remember fighting to scream for help as I laid injured, trapped. But they couldn't hear me. They didn't hear me, but they did. The they she talked about came from almost everywhere as Naruto was pulled into a darkness. Beneath rubble deep underground, deeper than he ever knew would be a part of this area of the village seen only briefly by how sunlight weakly shined through. Naruto's blood ran cold when he realized what she was talking about. Snakes. Black snakes slithered through the cracks to a girl that looked younger than the one that brought him here. And from those cracks, from those shadows stepped a long black-haired Jonin. Once Jonin that became something more within and outside of the village along with the rest of his team. Even in the lack of light it was clear that the slender tall male had pale skin. Paler skin than most everyone within the village. And then it was those eyes. Naruto only seen them in pictures. But to see them the way he did now. The serpent-like shape and markings said it all. Orochimaru, Naruto whispered before feeling a surge. A surge of malice that he felt on and off throughout his life stronger than before. Well, look at who's here, Anko's little friend, the Genjutsu prodigy Yuhi, Kurenai. Naruto heard Orochimaru hiss. Don't worry little one, I'll take good care of you, my newest test subject. She was taken by the snake Sannin. What happened to her with him because of the Kyuubi? I almost died and found myself faced with what was worse than death because I was found by Orochimaru before anyone else. The frost in Kurenai's voice broke with emotion as they were pulled back to that night. Not all is what it seems, a whisper was heard and unheard at the same time. What was around him moved so fast that it was hard to see so much so that she appeared. Pulled from where she was outside deeper within out of her control. A masked man held a baby with blonde hair with a kunai point to the child. The child was then gone and the masked man was fighting the fourth as a kunai thrown by the fourth passed through as the masked man's blade did the same to the fourth. The two vanished and reappeared, this time the masked man being hit from behind, crushed from above in the back by a sphere of chakra within the fourth's hand. Before both Naruto and Kurenai came face to face with the demon fox, in a jumble of images feelings. I will now extract the Kyuubi and have him destroy the village. The most powerful of the 9 Biju, the glow of the demon's red eyes had shifted in ways that the accounting of the Kyuubi attack did not say. The blood-red eyes that should have had slits for pupils weren't that. Both Naruto and Kurenai stepped back with the images of the shared mindscape and memories as the witness the Kyuubi's slits vanish in near an instant, becoming a sphere surrounded by 3 tomo spinning outward, enlarging the pupils until they vanished out the edge of the eye, leaving a single large orb. But no matter the speed, they knew what they saw. The telltale signs of one of the most powerful dojutsu known in the village, as well as whispered outside of it from Konoha's most feared clans, reduced to 2 brothers by the hands of the eldest. With the power and still feared. Now even more so, with one being able to destroy the rest with his powerful clan alone, easily taking him to the level of an S-ranked missing nin. The Sharingan, the 2 said in unions, not hearing the other over themselves. What did this mean? Kurenai couldn't help but ask the question. With all that she lost, what was done to her all this time? She knew. She knew for a fact that it was the Kyuubi that done it. That caused the death of her loved ones. For here to be injured, alone near death for days after its attack. And then while on death's door finally to be saved, but saved by the man that she thought was at least trustworthy enough because he was the sensei of her best friend. Them both learning the hard way that was a lie, not knowing which of them got the worst of it. Now even the source of her pain was not what she taught it, believed it to be. And Uchiha. Arrogant asses. From what he knew and what he saw in the last survivor in the village, almost every day he was forced to deal with Uchiha Sasuke. No wonder he didn't like him that much. The name shot through Naruto's mind again, this time along with a rage. One of them had a hand in the attack on Konoha on the day of his birth, which to the villagers must have been some kind of omen of ill fortune connected to his birth. But why only his birth? I refuse to be seal again. The voice of the Kyuubi rumbled as the claw that was free of chains that seemed to be holding it shot out. Claw aimed at a baby Hao laying in front of Naruto and Kurenai, laying on a stump in some kind of ritual. Blood sprayed for either could move with the Kyuubi's claw inches away from the baby, with the fourth and a woman with red hair stopping it. Naruto felt a deep ache in his heart looking at the woman, never seeing her before, not that he could remember. The pain growing greater when he looked at the fourth Hokage and watched with the last of his strength pull the chakra of the Kyuubi, with the image of death hovering over the fourth. A tear formed in Naruto's eyes as he watched the Kyuubi being sealed in the baby, as he heard the words. "We're sorry, Naruto. We wish we could have been there for you, but we can't. But we will always love you and be with you, son." That was the answer why he was hated by the village. After only seconds passing in the real world, Kurenai stepped back, putting a hand to her mouth in disbelief as tears formed in her crimson eyes. He was like what they became, the only difference was what happened to him was to protect the village. And with love, if she understood what she saw, heard, felt was right. What is going on here? The voice of the third Hokage rang out as he appeared surrounded by two teams of Anbu. One glance at Naruto being surrounded, beaten, bloody, given him his answer and sent a fury through him both for something like this happening once again, and he wasn't there to stop it. As well as this time this crime being perpetrated by two Chunin and four Genin graduated to the field. Two Chunin that knew the laws and four Genin that broke the law of attacking a fellow shinobi of the leaf. Under my authority as third Hokage, the six of you are under arrest for violation of attacking another shinobi, he said, his tone furious. And the two of you know what penalty you will face, he then said, looking directly at the male Chunin. Take them and prepare for. The Kyuubi was sealed in me. Naruto whispered, a few tears flowing from the corner of his eyes just loud enough for the third to hear his words. You're the son of the fourth Hokage. Take both Naruto and Kurenai to my office now, the third ordered, quickly drowning out Kurenai's statement. Hi, Hokage's office. The mood within the wall were heavy, thick with tension flowing from behind the Hokage's desk to those in front of it, flowing from Naruto and his blue eyes looking to Hiruzen with question, pain and an almost unforgiving look in them as one of Hiruzen's most trusted Anbu with medium-length, almost fire or reddish-brown hair that wore a fox mask examined Naruto as she had the highest medical nin skills of the group. The third didn't show the regret that he felt as he then turned his attention to Kurenai, who stood in silent, flanked by two more of his guard. Once the order was given for she and Naruto to be brought here, Kurenai did not resist. In truth, the young woman at that moment showed a break in her cold persona, and now here it seemed to be regret. Regret and contemplation. The moment she whispered a truth that no one but a very few should have known, and show of tears, there was no doubt that she would try nothing. That whatever happened, she was not a threat. Hokage-sama, Uzumaki Naruto has sustained a number of broken bones as well as laceration, the reddish-brown-haired Anbu reported. I can attend to the lacerations, however, he will still need to be taken to the hospital for observation and rest. I won't need to go to the hospital for observation, Naruto said, drawing Hiruzen's attention, seeing the stubborn look of his adapted grandson. Do what you can here, and we will see to the hospital once we are finished here, Kitsune, Hiruzen said in response before rubbing his temple, looking back to Kurenai. Yuhi Kurenai, what did you do? Tell me what happened. Yes, Lord Hokage, she started as she bowed, ready to admit her sins and accepted her punishment. Alone on the anniversary of Kyuubi's death. His defeat, she corrected to Hiruzen's subtle shock. The girl was intelligent. She had to be with her innate talent for Genjutsu, but after she was recused from Orochimaru, that intellect had become something more. Meaning that her perception of things was as well. I felt the chakra of the four Genin as well as Chunin within the area, as well as the signature of Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto glanced at the Chunin at hearing that. Even with his higher chakra with heavier restrictions on it, surrounded by those who graduated to field Genin, she was still able to tell that he was there. Well, that meant this one had skill. Hell, she proved it with whatever the hell she did to show him. Their memories? I followed the signatures, finding that Uzumaki Naruto was being attacked by civilians as well as those shinobi sensed. I stayed back and watched instead of trying to help, Kurenai admitted. He defended himself from the civilians, however the fight against the unrestricted shinobi was reasonable, but it was not enough. He took some damage, so choose to retreat, leading us in a chase to where you found us, Lord Third. When I heard Uzumaki Naruto question the reason why this was happening, I saw it as a chance to show him why to get revenge. Yuhi Kurenai, Hiruzen finished, his eyes cold. For what she lost, for what was taken, for a release from what she felt. An escape from the losses I don't know, she responded, causing Hiruzen's eyes to grow harder. All I wanted when I body flickered in front of him was to show him the pain others felt and why. So I used that technique. And that's when I learned more than either of us knew. Such as the Kyuubi attack was. Say nothing else, Yuhi Kurenai, Hiruzen cut her off coldly. Even with the seals, something still could not be said. Not known outlawed, even though both she and Naruto had to know more. The Uchiha, Minato, Naruto, that man. Yuhi Kurenai, as a shinobi as a chunin you are aware of the law of attacking fellow ninja of the village as well as the law put in place pertaining to Uzumaki Naruto and his status knowing the consequence for breaking these laws. For showing Naruto an S-rank secret you are aware that by all right that I should sentence you to. That enough old man, Naruto said with an edge in his voice. Instead of telling me about two things about myself and about my family you're threatening to place a death sentence on the one that showed me the truth. Naruto shouted now on his feet passing Kitsune stopping in front of the Hokage's desk. The reddish-brown-haired Anbu moved automatically in position to make sure nothing happened to the third. You need to tell me everything you know old man. The third looked at Naruto with a stare of disapproval for his adopted grandson's actions as he stood before him with his shirt opened showing bandages around his waist as well as on his arms. The blood was cleaned for the most part from Naruto's face showing defiant eyes that he often shown when he was younger. As well as seeing Minto's faces mixed with Kushina. Both you and Kurenai saw Minto and Kushina correct, Hiruzen said releasing a sigh, the fourth Hokage and his wife? Yes, Naruto replied with a hard low tone. With a glance Kurenai saw Naruto shake. And did you hear them say anything? Hiruzen asked. Hiruzen watched as the shaking Naruto showed become stronger along with tears being more pronounced in a way that Hiruzen hadn't seen in the boy. No, young man, in years. This was partly what Hiruzen feared when Naruto learned of both his burden as well as his parents. Something that Naruto needed to know for such a long time. But to learn of both things at once. We heard them tell the baby we saw that they were sorry and that they loved him. That they loved Naruto, Kurenai answered seeing how difficult it was for Naruto to answer. Hearing her answer Naruto turned looking over his shoulder at the crimson-eyed black-haired woman that showed him this in the first place. She looked back for a moment before bowing her head in a gesture of both regret and apology. Naruto, Hiruzen said regaining his adopted grandson's attention after a few moments, you weren't told about being the Kyuubi's jailer in hopes of allowing you to have the most normal life as possible as part of your parents' dying wish. At least they had hoped, and not being told who your parents were, was to protect you. In hopes that I would live a normal life and to protect me, Naruto whispered. Well that didn't happen, he then shouted, and you know it didn't old man. You know my life was hell for as long as I can remember having you coming to save me more than once to the point that you started to train me. Yeah it got better when Kakashi became my guardian. Took me in and started training me too, but I still didn't know why I was hated. Why I grew up with every adult hating me for no reason and having few friends. I know that Naruto, Hiruzen said visibly struggling to keep his emotions in check. No one but those that were there were supposed to know of what happened, as well as the consul, but the word got out and was twisted through rumors before I could do anything about it. The only thing I could do was put in place laws to protect you and to keep the secret from you as well as those your age and younger about the Kyuubi. That didn't stop the attacks. No, it didn't, Naruto, and I'm sorry they happened. So why didn't you tell me? Why didn't Kakashi tell me when this plan of yours didn't work? So, you could become stronger Naruto, strong enough to deal with this better. Once you became a field-level genin, when the restrictions on your chakra would be lifted and better under your control so you can use your chakra to keep the Kyuubi's chakra in check. And what's the excuse for not tell me about my parents? About what they did and why? You know the fourth has many enemies and when it was known that he had a son those enemies would come after you. The same reason for not telling you about the Kyuubi applies to waiting. Naruto scoffed at the word, waiting. Waiting to tell you everything about your parents until you were stronger and an adult. Being around here in the Hokage Tower as much as you have you should more than understand that there are those here in the village that would try to take advantage of you and your heritage. Do what they can to manipulate you now and then use you when you were old enough to become the head of a clan. Your birthright of not only the Uzumaki clan belongings and jutsus within the village but as well as the Namakazes would be a prize for those in search of power. His heritage, his history, his parents. His father was the strongest ninja known in the village, its leader, Namikaze Minto the fourth Hokage. And his mother. He knew that he had his mother's last name, but he had no idea that he had a clan. He was one of the last of his clan within the village with the right to everything they had within it. As past, a lineage of his own after all these years. Naruto, you knowing that you are the Kyuubi's jailer and who your parents are cannot leave this room. Those that are unaware of you being the Kyuubi's jailer must stay in the dark. But I will allow you the right to tell others only if it is absolutely necessary and you believe that you can trust them. But only when it is completely necessary. And as for heritage, no one should be told until later in your life. Kakashi, he knows about my parents as well, doesn't he? Naruto said after a few moments of looking at the third. The look on Naruto's face as well as the way he spoke said he was emotionally spent. Yes, the third answered, he was one of your father's students and was close with Minto as well as your mother Kushina. He was restricted from telling you for the same reasons I give you, he then said carefully, but now, he might be able to give some answers when he returns to the village. I want access to everything that is part of my lineage's old man, Naruto said with little emotion. You can now at least give me that since I know the truth. He then turned and went to the door leaving the Hokage's office not giving the third a chance to say something else. Go after him, Hiruzen told Kitsune. Make sure he makes it to the hospital then keep an eye on him. He will have to be watched for the next few days. Hi Hokage-sama, she answered with a bow and body flickered away the open door closing as she left. Now, what should I do with you Yuhi Kurenai? I have broken the laws Hokage-sama and I have no excuse for my actions, Kurenai said bowing her head to Hiruzen. I will accept any punishment you deem fit including my execution. He could say nothing more to that knowing what the woman went through, what she was carrying before he sat back in his chair letting loose another sigh. Take her to a cell and make sure no one goes near her. I want Anbu stationed around her at all times, Hiruzen ordered. Hi, both guards said before body flickering away with Yuhi Kurenai in the custody. This night was long, and the days to come would sure to be longer now that all this had happened. No matter if Naruto or any of them were ready or not meant nothing. It was done. 3 days later, Shinobi Academy. He had to move faster. He knew he could go faster than this with who his father was. Naruto was sure of it as he moved through the large obstacle course found in the depths of the academy. It was nothing like the train grounds outside located within and outside of the walls of the village which were more natural than the man-made facility here, an area that was half the size of the smallest training ground found out there. A place to train that was safer and more controlled being about 1/4 of a mile in size squared. This, even with the trees that Naruto moved through as well as other smaller structures, obstacles, training equipment should be nothing to move from one end to another. It would be nothing for the Leaf's yellow flash. He was nowhere near being what his father was, but that didn't mean that he shouldn't be faster, stronger. The injuries from that attack and the fight were pretty much gone when he woke up the next day refusing to stay in the hospital after getting checked out. Most of the workers and even few patients were happy to see him go. Even though there was that one doctor and nurses that believed more in doing their actual job than about what he carried. And now with his wounds healed to the point that Naruto couldn't feel the pain, there was no excuse. The weight of the restrictions on his chakra was no excuse. He was focused. He had more focus than he had before. That he had been, in some time. The lack of chakra control even now, even after all these years was one hell of a burden. One that he had found an answer to after a heated argument with Kakashi after he returned from his mission about not telling him about the Kyuubi or knowing his parents. The Kyuubi being within him was not only adding to his already high chakra reserves, but also disturbing the balance of his chakra, from what Kakashi had told Naruto after they calmed down. Telling Naruto that he had to work a hell of a lot harder than everyone else to get what he needed now. The branches around him and the tress that they belonged to were just a means to an end, something that was at the back of his mind pushing him to the next. Allowing Naruto's instincts to guide him from one limb to another, those same trees come in and out of being blurs compared to his goal. Yes, his sight, his hearing, his sense of smell, because of the Kyuubi were higher, better than usual. They always were. They were his, so use them. Is that Naruto, a slender boy with black hair up making his hairstyle look like a pineapple, asked looking up as he and 2 others looked up. 1 second he saw the blonde, then he seemed to vanish the next before reappearing a distance away. I think it is, Shikamaru, answered a blonde long-haired girl wearing her hair up on the back of her head before dropping to a tail. She was dressed in a darkish blue apron-like dress. Surprised. Is it me, Ino, Shikamaru, or is he starting to get faster? Asked a larger boy with brown hair down his back, wearing armor similar to that of his clan named Choji. I think he is, let's go, Shikamaru said before breaking into an uncharacteristic run. That's what he was, a person of instinct, and he had been fighting it, but why? Allowing this feeling to take him was giving him exactly what he wanted, what he needed to gain power. What was around Naruto burst into another blur before the trees were gone and he landed in an opening a few feet from the instructors. Uzumaki Naruto, you have just broken your record as well as gaining the third fastest run of this session, said a brown-haired woman dressed in black sandals, pants, and long shelved shirt under her chunin vest with her leaf-hurt protector around her head. The woman smirked, showing one of her elongated canine's teeth, a sign of the woman being a member of the Inuzuka clan along with the marks on her face, telling him, that's one hell of a jump from the 10th fastest kid. Keep it up. Right, sensei, Naruto said after a few seconds, needing to take a few breaths before waving off the statement and walking away, leaving the instructor to enter his latest run into the records. Naruto. He paused, almost letting out a sigh of annoyance at hearing Ino's voice. It wasn't really that he disliked the woman. Even truthy, after a few years of being around each other thanks to Shikamaru and Choji being Naruto's first true close friends when they were younger, it took time, but Ino was considered a friend. And she reciprocated the feeling as well. It just those times when it came around to her precious Uchiha Sasuke. And now, what he knew about his burden, heritage, his past as well as someone from that clan involvement. He turned around to see that Shikamaru was leading Choji and her towards him. Shikamaru running without being told. Well, there must be something in the air, Naruto said with a smirk. Ha ha, very funny, Shikamaru said when the trio slowed, walking the last few feet toward Naruto. Shikamaru speaking with a less lazy tone. Where have you been the last few days? Shikamaru asked pointedly. Naruto sighed, still having the habit of rubbing the back of his head, wondering now more than ever who he got it from, his mother or his father. You know, the time around my birthday, and its problems. Naruto, what happened? Ino said with a hard look in her eyes, arms folded over her chest, taking on another part of their relationship that Naruto would say wasn't actually annoying, but odd, as she was acting like a protective older sister. Of sorts. That came after she learned what happened to him on his past birthdays before Kakashi, and sometimes afterwards, such as this time, had took him in. I had a run-in with some drunks and a few shinobi that night, Naruto responded with a shrug. It turned kind of bad, so I had to visit the hospital and I took some time to rest up as well as deal with some things when Kakashi got back from the mission he was on. Do you know who these shinobis were? Do you know where they are? Ino seethed, drawing some of the students as well as few instructors close by attention. Ino, Choji said softly, putting a hand on the blonde Kunoichi's shoulder, calm down. How can you tell me to calm down, Choji, after hearing about Ino? It's all right, Naruto reassured. The old man came in and the problem was taken care of. I just don't know what happened to the shinobi. They attacked one of their own. I think it's clear what their punishment would be, Shikamaru stated. Maybe, maybe not. Some of them were field genin following a chunin, while there was another chunin that showed him what he wanted to know with a genjutsu he never heard of. It was hilarious, as it really wouldn't have mattered if he did or not since he sucked at genjutsu anyway. Damn it, Naruto, Shikamaru snapped, getting a look from his three friends. I told you if you didn't want to be alone on your birthday then let one of us know and we would have gone with you. Shika, I just didn't feel like moping around the apartment that night, so I went out ignoring the glares and such. But things got out of hand, Naruto shrugged again. That's not the point, Naruto, when you know that. Uzumaki Naruto, Ino coming rant was interrupted by another instructor. This one in particular was a male that had no clan, who had made his way through the ranks, come from a civilian family, one that was a member of the Hokage's council. From what was learned, the short dark-haired male with glasses had earned his rank through his own work. Though he wasn't really skilled enough to be in the field. His taijutsu was good. Nothing like legendary Jonin Might Gay, but someone that was more than good enough to be an instructor. One of the many that didn't like Naruto. That was clear even by how much he tried to hide it. It's time for your combat evaluation for this session and your opponent is waiting. Others were already in their own evaluation matches as Naruto, Ino, Shikamaru and Choji approached the field Naruto's was assigned to. But none of the other fields had the fanfare that was near or around where he was going. The group having to make their way through the individuals, hearing the conversations of the spectators as they moved through them. So who will he be facing this time? Does it really matter? Whoever it was didn't stand a chance. If they're good enough they would stand a chance. He's not unbeatable. Really? You think you can beat him? The person that was asked that question didn't reply, scratching his head, ending the conversation between the two genin as Naruto made his way through into the front of the crowd and stepped on the field. So, you're my opponent today, dope. Sasuke said, standing near the other end of the field with his usual look, dressed in dark pants, sandals and shirt under a black jacket known for having the Uchiha symbol on its back. I thought I would get a better fight than this. I know that you've gotten better, Naruto, but, said a medium-length pink-haired kunoichi wearing a reddish-pink top and dark short with a pair of fingerless gloves on his hands. I mean, it's Sasuke. She had paused and the pause was awkward, if anyone had noticed, right Ino? Ino didn't answer, still foaming about what happened to Naruto. The blonde-haired ninja noticed before looking at Sakura. He could call her a friend, yes, and Sakura actually did the same, but Sasuke was her world. Hell, at least it wasn't as bad as it used to be once she started to focus on being a shinobi more or risk being expelled from the academy for lack of advancing her skills. Meaning she would lose the ability to be near her dear Uchiha Sasuke like the many Uchiha fangirls that fell one by one through the years. Their relationship was also not as bad as it was when they were younger. When Naruto was constantly pestering her for dates, not knowing better, now understanding that he was looking for some kind of positive attention. For love, for affection, not understanding what it meant or what those words meant. Hell, he only had a slightly better understanding of what love and affection meant now after Kakashi tried to explain what the words meant, and Gigi well explaining what the words, those feelings were supposed to be, meant better. Naruto hadn't stopped going after Sakura after that, but he did stop after finding out the secret that even Sakura didn't know or was told even now. That she was part Uzumaki and that Naruto and she were related as cousins. The third Hokage at least told him that much of his family, and Naruto now understood why way better than he did then. They're right, dope, you might have gotten better over all these years from being a loudmouth, low-talent idiot, but that's not enough. Putting that thought aside, Naruto's only response was to take his position across from Sasuke and dropped into his fighting stance that was nothing more than the basis Academy Taijutsu stance with a slight variation, bring about a silence from those that were watching. Heritage, clan lineage, pride in his family. Naruto had that now even more so, if he just recently learned of the bulk of it, of the strength of belonging. Even that damn fox. No Uchiha, he had a chance to defeat him, Naruto knew it. He had his instincts and that strength just as Sasuke had his Sharingan. Begin, the instructor called after asking if each of the two genin were ready. In a blur, Sasuke appeared in front of Naruto and threw a right hook, catching everyone watching off guard, knowing that Naruto would feel the power of Uchiha Sasuke, who was trying to end this in one strike. Out to embraces Naruto once more. Then froze when they saw Naruto's speed. Naruto's arm shot up, blocking the pouch, using the back of his forearm to push away Sasuke's punch by pushing against Sasuke's inner forearm and throw a punch of his own. Sasuke blocked with his free arm and snapped back, throwing a kick into Naruto's stomach. The blow was a glancing blow as Naruto jumping back out of Sasuke's reach. Naruto then moved to his right and charged at Sasuke's left side. He threw a high punch to side of Sasuke's head. Sasuke turned, catching the punch, throwing his own only to retreat before it made contact, forced by Naruto's kick to his side, getting distances between the two of them. Some that were watching seemed to be impressed. Okay, dope, Sasuke said and charged again, almost in a blur. Trust in my instincts. Eyes widened around the field as well as those that came to watch the top student fight the one that was at best once far below average with the other matches finished. And all were astonished by the speed of two genin that like them had chakra restrictions on them. Sasuke, that was a given. He was a prodigy. The last of the great Uchiha clan. The one that would rebuild it. But Uzumaki Naruto being able to keep pace. Flurries of punches. Flurries of kicks. Kicks at times that seemed like the both of them were dueling with their legs. For a second, they both moves becoming blurs that become too difficult for many of the other genin to see. Then it happened. Naruto dodged away, then quickly moved back in and threw another pouch to Sasuke's face, causing Sasuke to block high with both hands because of the angle and the speed of the hit coming his way. He then stumbled and folded inward as the air was knocked out of his lungs with the force of another pouch. Then he flew through the air and fell a few feet away from Naruto, hard on his back, feeling the pain of a kick to the face. Did Sasuke falter? Or was it simply that Naruto got the upper hand against Sasuke? Naruto, Sakura said, the way in which she said it surprising Ino standing next to her, forcing Ino's anger to subside. Ino was also caught off guard that Naruto was doing this well. no matter how much she saw him as a brother. Slowly Sasuke rose to his feet, wiping the blood from his mouth as he stared daggers at the waiting Naruto. Confident, sure of himself because he was able to keep up with Sasuke. And able to hit him a couple of times in this fight. It wasn't the first time. But this time it hurt. He put him down, meaning it was time. It looks like you made me have to take you seriously, dope, Sasuke said, standing straight as his eyes spun, turning his jet black eyes into blood red with a pair of tomos in each eye, activating the Sharingan, Naruto said softly as flashes of what they saw appeared coming to the front of his mind, the memory of what happened during the Kyuubi's attack. Students back away from the field to the second viewing line. Instructors demanded getting their orders followed, only having a few hesitated before moving back. 4 of the instructors surrounded the ring and unison formed hand signs when done, slamming their hands to the ground, creating a barrier around the ring said to be strong enough to stand against up to C-rank ninjutsu. Naruto's head throbbed enough to force him to bring his hand to it, as well as a pain in his chest. A hurt that brought about by emotion. A sadness. A rage. His eyesight blurred for a moment, sending Naruto into a small daze. Memories of one of them being the one. You want power, and you hate the one that made your life hell. Taking everything from you. Use my power. Destroy the Uchiha. Snake. Ram. Monkey. Boar. Horse. Tiger. Great fireball technique. Sasuke said after finishing the technique's hand signs and lifted 2 fingers formed into a blade by the side of his mouth before inhaling below, molding his chakra to release a large fireball rushing at Naruto. With Naruto still out of it, still caught in a daze, registering the heat of the fireball ready to strike him. Use my power. Naruto, Sakura was the one to shouted, surprising many that didn't know better about their friendship. Being in love with Sasuke or not, she didn't want to see Naruto badly hurt. But was it too late? She didn't know because she was forced to cover her eyes at the impact as well as the flash of the explosion from the fireball hitting the barrier in front of them. Rat, tiger, dog, ox, rabbit, tiger. Sasuke's red Sharingan eyes flashed in surprise, watching Naruto jump to the side out of the wake of the explosion of his fireball as Naruto's hands went through hand signs with impressive speed. Fire release. Phoenix Sage Fire Technique. Naruto did the same as Sasuke did with his great fireball, placing the finger near his mouth and blow before Naruto reached in his pouch, throwing shuriken which were engulfed in the flames Naruto summoned. Sasuke jumped back to gain distance from the quickly approaching flaming shuriken, reaching into his weapons pouch, drawing a kunai, deflecting each blade Sharingan ablaze, seeing each flame in slow motion. As well as Naruto. What the flash of light cleared those that recovered from the blinding light saw on Sasuke's half of the field were shurikens stuck in the ground, still on fire. Questions went unsaid when their eyes went to the sound of blades clashing. Naruto blade to blade against Sasuke using his Sharingan, looking slower to his eyes and being that was 2 different things. Sasuke sidestep another one of Naruto's kunai slashes, only to be forced to guard at the last second kunai to kunai. This wasn't right. How could someone like Uzumaki Naruto, who was dead last in the academy, almost flocking out more than once, be able to push him? The last of the Uchiha in the village. An elite. Sasuke had a moment to look at Naruto's eyes with his Sharingan. They were different. They had chakra in them now. Something like his own dojutsu, but not the same. It wasn't like any other dojutsu found in the village's records. It couldn't be. No, it wasn't. Whatever was with Naruto's eyes was something different. Naruto was getting faster. Sasuke's eyes were starting to struggle to keep up with Naruto's movements as they become more erratic. Unpredictable. Almost savage. Sasuke's eyes started to burn. His heart pounding. Was this anxiety? Was this fear? Fear of losing to this nobody? The strain. For a second Sasuke's sight became clear. Naruto's speed became slower compared to before as Sasuke saw the shape of slits in Naruto's eyes. Sasuke spat with a brutal kick to the midsection, the soles of his sandals skidding across the ground with Naruto's speed back to what was before the burning in Sasuke's eyes. Sasuke was only barely able to remain standing. Then he felt the crack of a punch to the jaw. Crack to the cheek, taking him back to where he started from the first punch. A strike to his forehead, riddling Sasuke's skull, and his shot blurred the speed of the world around him, returning to full speed. Naruto, what are you doing? Some shouted. Sasuke stumbled, wavering, unable to do anything as he saw the point of Naruto's kunai come down on top of his head. He was. Uzumaki Naruto Lord Third wished to see you in his office immediately, an Anbu said, catching Naruto's kunai hand high in the air by the wrist. Naruto's look was one of a man in earnest. Out for blood. Out for Uchiha Sasuke's blood with red silted eyes. Uzumaki, now, the Anbu ordered. After another moment, the change in Naruto's eyes faded and he slowly pulled his arm back from the Anbu's grasp, slowly placing the kunai back into his pouch before stepping back and turning his back to Uchiha Sasuke, walking away, followed by the Anbu that stopped him. Everyone stunned long after Naruto was escorted away said or did nothing other than the instructor dropping the barrier the four created. Those still worshipped Sasuke the most rushed to his side as the Uchiha felt the one new beaten, close to losing consciousness. Hokage's office. Hiruzen took another puff of his pope before moving to the next piece of paperwork that continued to grow even when he finished something else and having a few of his aides handling the less prioritized orders once he himself overviewed them. Yes, this was one of the things that he disliked about this job then when he first gained the position and retired. With that feeling remaining, so when he was forced to retake the position for the sake of the village and the loss of his processor, it grew greater. But he would do what was necessary as he always did. Whoever you parents were, Minato, no matter what happened or why you got separated from them, I hope. No, I believe that you made at least one of them pride, the third Hokage mused to himself out loud as he glanced at Minato's picture on the wall sitting right after Hiruzen's own. A knock at the Hokage's office door drew Hiruzen from his few moments of remains. Come in, he said, watching the door open, gaining a smile at seeing his adapted grandson only to have it vanish when Naruto was followed by an Anbu. With a quick bow, the Anbu in question approached and told the third the reason for this visit. The third's gaze turned serious. Can you explain what happened, Naruto? Hiruzen said with little jubilance. It was my combat evaluation for the session and my opponent was Uchiha Sasuke, Naruto said fatly, as well as showing he was annoyed. And he made you angry? Naruto shrugged, irritated. He was talking as if he were superior to me as usual whenever we faced off. Naruto responded with a dismissive wave of the hand. It just this time I responded by showing him he was wrong. I was holding my own with him like I had been doing any other fight until he activated his precious Sharingan. This time thought it looks like his Sharingan wasn't enough. Naruto scoffed, almost starting to pace like a caged animal in front of the Hokage's desk. This time I was getting the upper hand, Naruto continued. This time after he used great fireball technique, I took the fight to him, catching him off guard with the technique from that scroll you gave me. Naruto's was showing the same erratic tendency that were happening during his match, making the Anbu that brought him to the Hokage take note and stand at the ready. I had to push myself, but I was moving how I needed when I needed, and I was winning. Naruto's rage was rising. I was starting to win. No, I was winning. I was finally getting the best of Uchiha Sasuke, Naruto growled, turning to the third. I was knocking the prefect shinobi of our class, of our year, down a peg in front of our peers, and all of a sudden I was stopped. Why? Because someone was finally taking down the last Uchiha. Hurting the precious last of his clan, having his peers seeing him as mortal instead of Kami walking? Because. No, Naruto, it was because you were going to kill Uchiha Sasuke, Hiruzen said harshly, raising his voice so Naruto would hear him and listen. Tell him, he then told the Anbu. Hi, Uzumaki Naruto. The reason why I stopped your fight was because you were losing control, oozing killing intent, growing by the second until you moved to deal a fatal blow. Naruto glared at the Anbu and felt a spike in the other male's killing intent. You had already won the match. The Uchiha was only standing by pure will, and if he even tried to move he would have hit the ground. The end. But you, Uzumaki Naruto, were out for blood in a match against someone who is meant to be a comrade. Naruto stare, looking eye to eye through the Anbu's mask, saying nothing. Naruto-kun, Hiruzen said, trying to cut through the tension, is there something wrong? Something that you are not telling me. Telling someone? No, Naruto answered, glancing at the third before turning and leaving. Go after him, I will send additional Anbu shortly. 4 months later. The villagers were now at least starting to hide their glares when they saw him, but Naruto didn't care either way. They were nothing. They were just ignorant people that didn't know anything about him or the truth. And if it weren't for that damn rule, they would know. All of them would know it, and the looks on their faces would be other sickening. They would look at him like they looked at the last Uchiha, still not knowing a damn thing about him. About whom he was or what he went through. But it didn't matter. Right now his focus was to grow stronger. Grow powerful like his father. Surpass his father and take his place as the Hokage, having the respect of the position. So if they feared him, so be. Let them fear him. Let them move aside when he walked the streets unless you were someone that earned his respect. Those that were he friends. When he had time for them. Stepping into a side street, he vanished from the eyes of civilians, using his still growing speed to move to the next section of the village as undetected as possible. People didn't need to know why he was there in that part of the village. And most that didn't get a good look at his face didn't care about seeing another male walking around the area. He didn't stick out anymore. He didn't wear as bright of clothes as he did as a kid just starting in the academy, wearing a bright orange jumpsuit to be noticed. Hell, he wasn't even wearing the darker orange pants with a darker top that he had adopted from Kakashi's influence as he got older anymore. Now he moved through Konoha wearing dark pants with a burnt orange strip down the leg and a blue top seen underneath a dark-colored hooded jacket with matching burnt orange stripes on the sleeves that weren't too abnormal to see. The jacket was closed, only partially unzipped, and the hood of the jacket was over his head, obscuring most from seeing his face. No one had followed him this leg of the trip, he noticed. Other than them. It was nothing he could do about the Anbu assigned to watch him. But he could lose them once he got there and made his way to where he wanted to be. In a few minutes, making into the edge of the village, heading into a piece of forest still within its walls and not restricted as a training ground, Naruto once again disappeared into that forest, getting a flicker of the Anbu still in his wake. They were far enough away from him to circle back around before they had noticed the change in his direction just long enough. He created a shadow clone as he reached a piece of land near where certain individuals once lived or would have lived if it weren't for the Kyuubi attack. The reconstruction of this area was taking far longer than anyone had imagined, with focus over a decade and a half being placed on other things. With the truth being that the area was slow to be rebuilt for a reason. Naruto came to a gate still within the trees, or what many believed was a part of the forest, even though there were far less trees than those without the ability to see the truth could see. One strong barrier, more than one from what he understood, and a powerful genjutsu that went unnoticed due to the power of the barriers. It was so much going on with what was in front of him that Naruto really had no idea of its complexities, even though he had read what it was. He didn't have the help he needed to understand it, nor the current skill, but knew how to get past them. Because he and those with his blood were meant to. All of this was to protect what was his and his family's. Placing a hand on a particular tree, Naruto focused a small amount of chakra as he could manage not to draw the attention of anyone who could sense chakra or any of the Anbu his shadow clone was sending on a chase before it would drop somewhere and train, but enough to do what was necessary. The air rippled in front of him, allowing him to pass through the safeguards put in place to the side of a building in the near distance, surrounded by a yard and a wall with a gate a little farther behind some trees. Despite no one being around for years when he first made his way through the barrier, the place was in better condition than he thought it'd be. The walls around the yard were dirty and remained so, with Naruto not having the time to clean them or really the interest then nor now, as he bit his thumb, smearing the blood across the iron name plate found near the gate. In response to the blood, a click sounded, unlocking the old but sturdy gate into what was still an overgrown yard that needed attention as well. Unlike the building. Unlike the house. Large, 2 levels with 8 rooms he had found when he took the time to explore it, was in great condition. He walked in then and now, once taking the short walk from the gate through the yard to the door along the paved path leading to it, in a large living room nicely furnished even if sparsely. 2 kitchens, one on the main floor and a smaller one in the first basement, not counting as part of the 8 rooms Naruto was thinking of. A library on the main level, a few bedrooms, a couple of bathrooms on the second level, along with a master bedroom, normal storage. The way in which this house was built said that his parents were planning to give Naruto some brothers and sisters. To start the Namikaze Uzumaki clan, or remake the Uzumaki clan. Or at least family, if they had no interest in dealing with the traditions placed on clans since Lord Second's time as Hokage, from what Naruto remember of history and his ways. What purpose they had in building the Namikaze compound, gone. This place was now Naruto's. It was now his real home, unlike Kakashi's place. That was Kakashi's place, his sanctuary which he allowed Naruto to live in. Now the Namikaze compound was his. His escape from the rest of the village where he could be himself as well as he could train the way in which he wanted and needed. He dropped his jacket on a chair found on his path through the first basement into the second that was far larger than the first beyond what was possible. Something that was beyond the skills of anyone else he had run across or look on, even his father. At least Naruto thought quickly conclude that everything wasn't written or know about the fourth Hokage in the nation's public written history. Another advantage in his favor, one being a room he found that was impossibly huge to be found underground and lined with seals, floors, walls, and ceilings along with training targets he had brought into the room. Most of the targets as well as a few dumbness were shredded in pieces from his wind ninjutsu, both old and the one he was working to learn. With the hand signs memories he closed his eyes and drew his chakra, molding it. Ox, tiger, rabbit, bird. Wind release, air bullets. He inhaled and released the breath and a mold gust of compressed air that flowed through the air and split through the last normal target just high of its center and beyond. His aim was off, but the deadliness was there. He needed to continue and make it perfect, unstoppable. To make him unstoppable. Konoha high security holding cells. Very few were held on the dark depths of the high security holding cells, with many of those held there long gone. Either transferred, released, or executed for their crimes. Most seeing the Hokage walking through these corridors with a team of 4 Anbu guards as he was now would glare at the man even if they were bound and their chakra being sealed. Some out of pure hatred, malice for the power he had over their lives as well as trying to hide the fear of what would come next, having been held in their cell. Many of them, if not broken, might have been close to it, as the stronger shinobi would have not been held there long. Not in all case, of course. Yuhi Kurenai, the raven-haired, crimson-eyed young woman, raised her head, opening her eyes from sitting in silence, dressed in a chakra seal embed straitjacket. Hokage-sama, she responded with a respectful bow of her head. Have you decided on what my sentence will be? Once again she had asked the question, or had assumed that her life was forfeit. Hiruzen noticed. The question he didn't have an answer to was it because she knew the laws and were following the clear, punished for her crimes to their most final conclusion? Or was she looking for a way out from the pain of what was done to her? In the beginning, when she was found, she showed the signs of someone that went through hell with things done to her without her control. But she never showed any signs of wanting to die, wanting to take her own life, or wanting her life to be taken. But she was accepting of a possible death sentence. I came here to talk, the third said. Tell me again what happened with Naruto. How much of your technique did you use and what did you see? What did you feel? He finished asking the last 2 questions quieter than was necessary, though it was always the possibility that someone else could be listening. I only used the part of that technique to show and see what happened, Hokage-sama, no other part of it. I saw no reason to try, as I felt and saw what really happened. And what did you feel from Naruto-kun at that time, in those moments? Hiruzen asked after a few moments of hearing the young woman's words, tone, and her mannerisms. In those moments at the end, from what I could tell, his feelings were all over the place. Anger, sadness, confusion, happiness, regret, disbelief, and a sense of belonging. The sense of belonging was the strongest emotion I felt before I broke contact. The third could believe that without a question. Naruto always wanted to know who his parents were and where he came from. And he got it. But, Hokage-sama, Kurenai said, breaking his train of thought, if I may, why have you asked me about the technique I used? You know what I can do. Because Naruto-kun has changed. Hiruzen answered, seeing no reason in not telling her the truth. He has become more aggressive, cold, pushing away the few friends he made as well as being at odds with his guardian. I think almost everyone in his life. I see, Kurenai said after a moment's contemplation. But my abilities have not developed in a way to affect someone in that way, Hokage-sama. No, they haven't, from what we have found. That meant that something else was going on. Could it be? Could Danzo have gotten to Naruto? He made sure that no one knew outside of his Anbu, and Kurenai learned of what Naruto had learned that night. They needed to find out what was going on, and they needed to learn quickly. Hiruzen hoped that it wasn't the one thing that they couldn't deal with right now. That in truth Hiruzen didn't want to face, as it meant that he was losing his adapted grandson to the Biju he carried. But first, his business was here with another of the village's shinobi. Yuhi Kurenai, you have already admitted that you are aware of the crimes that you have committed and are willing to accept the penalties for it, which in truth in this situation is up to my discretion. So, Yuhi Kurenai, Give me a reason why I should not do as you assume I should beyond what happened to you in the past as well as the potential value of your unique genjutsu capabilities? Are you still a danger? What happened to her was terrible, both nearly dying only to be saved by the student that he failed to teach as well as lead during his time as his commander, and done Kami know what to her even after all these years. Even with that, thinking of the leaf as a whole, her strength of will and strength of mind to take her this far was great. She was a prodigy in Genjutsu, and because of it, whatever Orochimaru did to her gave her Genjutsu something more. Along with other abilities that Hiruzen was sure the Kunoichi did not tell him or anyone else unless in deep confidence. She was a great asset to the village that was loyal to the village, willing to use both her gifts and curse to protect it. I no longer have any intention of doing harm to Uzumaki Naruto, Hokage-sama, Kurenai said, sincerely making unwavering eye contact with the Hokage. And what has changed your mind? Because I saw that he's not to blame for what happened to me. And realize he is, like me and Anko. Hiruzen's expression changed to one of utter confusion. I and Anko all had burdens placed on us with no control over how and what happened whatsoever, she explained calmly. The only difference with Naruto is that as a baby he was given his burden to save the village and with hope that he someday would be able to do something with it that others before him could not. That was the first of Hiruzen heard of that. And that happened out of love. Not from someone out to see what they could create for their own ends. Kurenai's calm demeanor breaking to show what she felt about what happened to not only her, but as well as her best friend. I may not know the feeling of being ostracized firsthand, but I still understand, as well as know and understand the feeling of loneliness. Not being able to get close to anyone because you were different, afraid that you might somehow do them harm. And in Naruto-kun's worrying about being harmed while dealing with not knowing why for years. Naruto-kun. An hour and a half later, Hokage Tower. You know you're lucky that Hokage-sama deemed that your 3 months in confinement with a warning of breaking those laws again will cost you much more. Kurenai was enough of a punishment. The reddish-brown-haired Anbu told Kurenai as she escorted her out. I know, Kurenai admitted, and I wasn't expecting to be walking free. The reddish-brown-hair woman, uncharacteristically for an Anbu, just shook her head, aware that no one was around to see or hear except for the Hokage through the use of the Hokage seeing orb. She also glanced at Kurenai, watching the other woman closely as they walked together. Kurenai was now dressed in a fresh set of clothing similar to what she wore when she was first brought in 3 months ago. Both her Chunin vest and her head protector had been returned as well, stating that she was not only freed but reinstated as a shinobi. Kurenai acknowledging this face by choosing to carry her vest while still placing her protector back around her forehead. Behind the ANBU's masks she had raised an eyebrow. 3 months in solitary confinement bound with chakra seals placed on her, even with the short time she should have showed some fatigue. Some discomfort, something, but to her eyes Kurenai seemed mostly fine. How are you feeling? The reddish-brown-haired woman asked quietly. I'm okay. I can already feel my chakra flow returning to normal and my body doesn't feel that out of shape, Kurenai answered, knowing why she was asked the question. Don't worry, I'll take my time and make sure to work out to get back to normal. The reddish-brown-haired Anbu just looked at Kurenai for a moment, then just shook her head in both disbelief as well as being used to it by now. She also caught that Kurenai had become quiet, pensive, nerves. It was kind of adorable. Enough that the woman wanted to laugh. What's wrong? Kurenai glanced at her before answering. Do you know if Anko out on a mission? No, she's somewhere in the village. Why? Because I needed to go find her and get yelled at. Konoha, en route to training grounds. She didn't like to, especially to friends, but Kurenai lied. Her body didn't feel weak at all. The moment the chakra seals were removed, and her chakra returned to normal, her body's strength returned to close to near what it was before she was incarcerated. A monster trying to make another monster? No, she wasn't a monster, he was the monster, and she was one of many affected by his madness. This was what happened to her and not what she was. She would continue to make whatever this was hers and not let it change her into something she didn't want to be. What she almost become when she attacked Naruto. Kurenai took a deep breath, calming herself, allowing herself to realize how much she missed the feel of the wind in her face and flowing through her hair as she quickly leapt from rooftop to rooftop, heading across the village as stealthily as she could and then to the trees, shaking off being unable to do anything but sit in her cell. She took another breath and shut her eyes as more her abilities finally reawakened within her. She opened her eyes in time to change direction to avoid a tree with relative ease, as well as change her direction towards the familiar chakra signature in the distance right where she expected her to be. In another few minutes she dropped to the ground where a large clearing was made just outside a pair of large gates keeping one of the most dangerous training grounds known to the hidden leaf behind it. And for sure Anko as usual was in there. Damned Anko, Kurenai swore out loud to herself. The moment she entered the forest of death she had caught what wasn't there at first. Anko had released a group of oversized ground insects into the forest that were bred in the aftermath of one of Orochimaru's early experiments seemingly gone right. At least the method was accepted by the elders or someone with pull, as the creature were still here. They were altered, made stronger, different enough where none of her normal genjutsu had an effect on the creature that was chasing her now. It looked like a large caterpillar, though it didn't have nearly as many legs but enough of them along its segment body and pincers in its mouth. When she saw the thing's eyes, pretty much the only thing she saw in them was hunger. Spending 3 months imprisoned awaiting her execution only to be released, and coming here only to become an oversized bug's lunch. Now that would be ironic. Snakes streaked through air from the sleeve of the kunoichi, biting into the exoskeleton of the already thriving in pain on the ground insect with senbons sticking out of its large eyes. The woman with purple hair pulled up and back in a small tail, stuck her tongue out, licking her lips like a snake used its tongue to taste the air as she watched the particular snakes she released do their job. Or in particular the venom of those snakes doing their job. Their fangs succeeded breaking through the biological armor of the creature, and with that success injected the body with one of the most power venoms possible through the infusion of her chakra into the snakes. She watched with interest as the shaking of the creature was coming to an end. Or no longer possible, as the inside of the creature was being meddled by such a patented venom that if Anko had done it right, would have nothing but a pound in time, including that hard shell that had been held to get through until now. Another tool honed for her assassination duties, making sure that in the field that those that need to die and remain unknown would disappear. Now it's time to work on using the trick to keep the victim alive long enough that they wish they were dead. They will tell me what I need to know so I can make it stop, she mused out loud. Now. A loud explosion. More a crack behind her made her turn in time to see a flash. What? In dead run, Anko jumped to the trees and threw them at a high pace, moving through these trees from memory, knowing this forest nearly as well as she knew her own body. The explosion. That wasn't a trap, she knew. There were no traps of that type that could exert an explosion, let alone what she swore was. Anko picked up speed. Holy shit, she swore, feeling the electricity in the air and body flickered to where the epicenter of the explosion. The destruct was not what she thought it would be. The flash she saw from where she was massive, but evidently directional. The tree directly in the air were broken but weren't burnt, snapped by the force. What was singed was the husk of another of Orochimaru's centipedes, with hole through its body like it was struck from above with whatever it was going through it. She turned her attention to the ninja that was standing close by with her back to Anko, watching as the woman was breathing heavy, looking at her hands. I guess I still needed to work on using that, the woman said. You fucking idiot, Anko shouted, Furies moving in front, Kurenai at max speed. I sorry Anko, but I had to kill that centipede, Kurenai said. I had no idea you had released them when I came in looking for you. You know fucking well that's not what I'm talking about, Kurenai, Anko yelled, clenching her fist hard and raised as she stepped forward and wrapped her arms around Kurenai's shoulders, pulling her close. Why the hell did you go after the Uzumaki Naruto kid, knowing damn well what would have happened if you hurt him? If you had killed him, Anko said, sobbing, I thought you knew better than that. No, I know you do, or you wouldn't be my best friend. Damn it, you could have died, been executed for that crime. Leaving me alone again. And for what? Going after him won't change anything. Anko grew quiet, crying on Kurenai's shoulder, forcing tears to form in Kurenai's, seeing what she put her best friend through. I sorry Anko, Kurenai said, hugging Anko back. I sorry. I won't do anything like that again. A few weeks later, Internal Academy training ground. Once again Naruto was surrounded by a group of genin, all of them just mad enough to want to go through this little match. All but the one person he wanted. But these no names would just have to do. His clones weren't enough. They were strong like him. But they knew what he knew and did what he did with some variation. But these maggots weren't on his level or anywhere near what his friends had the potential of doing. But these guys gave him a chance to once again test his power. What a disappointment. Most of them were just too damn slow for him. Whatever they were doing outside of the academy curriculum evidently amounted to nothing. As it stood now, most of them would be average shinobi. Useless, pathetic bags of garbage that should be set aflame. So destroy them. Quote. A wick grin formed at the corner of Naruto's mouth at hearing that whisper in the back of his mind coming to the surface. He was already angry. Angry as many of them that looked down on Naruto the worse and still were around to this day. They were the ones that still they thought they were better than him. But they weren't. 2 of the 5 teenagers slightly older than Naruto worked in tandem. They moved in tandem, one throwing a high kick to Naruto's chin as another throw a punch. Neither of them touched him. Naruto returned the favor, moving out of their reach before throwing a kick to the one that threw the punch and a pouch to the face of the one that missed the kick. They both flowed to the ground dizzied for a few moments. Naruto was being nice. For now, you have no real skill in taijutsu, one of the other 3 that were still on their feet shouted. This one threw a punch after making his declaration, giving away his position as well as his intentions with lackluster killing intent. They weren't ready yet. Naruto knew. He didn't think. He knew. Either hid your intention or show that you had the intention of destroying the opponent. There was no in between. And this genin failed in both. However, one-on-one this genin's taijutsu was crisp. He didn't waste emotion, and from what Naruto knew could see, this genin was damn good, like he said. He was better than Naruto. This genin got the basic and was given the attention need to move to the advances. That made Naruto even angrier. Naruto was still a brawl, and because even with the help of the third who could only do so much and Kakashi who did what he could. Even though he hid the truth from him. Could only do so much with a kid that had trouble learning how the rest did. It wasn't his fault that he had to learn things differently. He wasn't dumb. What it was that due to his heritage, due to his mother background of having high chakra, he was hyperactive. He bored easily, which made it hard to focus on things that interested him. And being the holding of the Kyuubi made that worse. No one here had recognized it. At least those that were meant to help him grow like the rest of the academy's students. To many of them were bigoted and should have known better. The difference between him and the Kyuubi. They need to be show they were wrong. He had to work twice, 3 times as hard to get where he was. And now he would show them again how much of a fool they were. Naruto was still faster and stronger than the genin that was in front of him. And showed it by moving to the side of a palm strike, catching the genin's extended arm in a sloppy but effective enough arm bar, place his elbow into the jaw of the genin. The force of the strike forced blood to spray from the teen's mouth, making those that were fighting with him against Naruto go wide-eyed. Naruto just smiled a dark smile again. He let the genin go and at the last second, lost in the sight of causing another to bleed, he missed the approach of 10 shuriken thrown by the other 2 genin still standing. Naruto's reflexes took over, allowing him to move his body out of the instinct that was calling to him, that was flow through his veins, making him dodge without thought. But he still was fast enough as one of the shuriken flew to close his face, checking the flesh. Naruto saw red. Or more, his eyes went red as he jumped back, the smirk gone and rage in his eyes become with red eyes with black slits. What's going on? Sakura asked one of the students. Uzumaki is in another fight against a group of genin, the male answered. Sakura moved through the small number of people that had found their way to a clearing within the internal training ground trees and saw what was going on. From where she stepped out to saw what was going on with 2 genins on the ground and a third on one knee as Naruto jumped back. Damn it, Naruto. Why didn't anyone get an instructor? Sakura demanded the pitch in a voice something completely different than the screech she was once known for. Someone already did. A chill running up her spine, or something else, made Sakura turn back to the fight in time to see Naruto with again changing his position to place all of the genin he was fight in front of him. Ox, tiger, rabbit, bird. Wind release, wind bowl. What is going on here? An instructor shouted, dropping to the ground from one of the trees. Naruto recognized her. It was the woman from the Inuzuka clan. As much as he wanted to show them something, wanting the wind bullets to rip through their flesh. But if he showed an instructor his skill, even one that didn't treat him like shit, the consul would learn that he was better than they thought. I smell the blood in the air, so tell me what happened now. The Inuzuka instructor demanded, looking at those on the ground going to check on the 2 that were just now getting back to their senses, trying to pick themselves up. We were just having an impromptu to group spar, instructor. Naruto said, his eyes already returning to their normal blue. though they were colder than usual, colder than they once wore. An impromptu spar, the Inuzuka said, smelling the air, smelling the blood of Naruto, and the 6 of you are lucky that this didn't go any further, she then growled. The 2 of you, she then told the 2 genins that threw the shurikens at Naruto, you will help me now. Help the other 2 to walk and follow me. And tell me everything that happened. The rest of you back to training. Now, the 2 genin that were still standing did as they were told, as the rest of the genin that were there dispersed as the Inuzuka glanced back at Naruto. He didn't care. He wasn't worried about those 5 or what happened here reaching the console. No one here wanted to admit that Uzumaki Naruto had beaten 3 out of 5 older, better trained genins in a fight alone and was easily about to finish his. No one that didn't matter to him would believe it. And those that did wouldn't running their mouths about it. At least most of them. Naruto, what the hell is wrong with you? Naruto turned around, not even realizing, or more paying attention to the fact that Sakura was still there. The look on her face was fury. Really? The only time she showed that kind of fury was when it came to her beloved Sasuke, and he had nothing to do with this fight. Hell, he wasn't even anywhere then. What are you going on about, Sakura? Naruto struggled to keep his temper in check. She was the last that he had that was alive that he knew of, and her mother sure as hell didn't count in his mind, as he knew for damn sure he didn't count in hers. I'm taking about you, Naruto, she answered with a tone that actually made him look at her, a fire that he hadn't noticed. You've been acting like an idiot, worse than when we were younger, being overly aggressive, starting fights, acting cold toward us, your friends. Why? What are you not telling us? Telling me? Why? What are you not telling us? Why should he be telling them anything? They didn't know anything because they couldn't know anything about him. About whom he really was. What he really was as the Kyuubi's container. Hell, could any of them even handle the truth? What, Sakura, are you mad at me because I was doing something that your Prius Sasuke? What? This has nothing to do with him. Sakura cut in, not even saying Sasuke's name. This about you, Naruto. You and how you change. Become something. Like a demon, Sakura, Naruto said, with closed the distance between the two of them with one aggressive step forward, his blue eyes colder than ice. So cold that Sakura flinched in front of him, as he knew she would. I wasn't going to call you a demon, Naruto, she stammered at first before steeling herself. I was going to say dark. Dark like your eyes are now. That something happened that make you. Why don't you go find Sasuke and brother him, Sakura? I'm done, Naruto said before walking away. So the demon brat little friends are starting to see him for what he is, and he is acting like the monster he is. I will use this opportunity to finally have the demon killed and give my master Lord Orochimaru something he will surely give me great reward for. Thought one of the instructors that watched from the trees with white shoulder-length hair with some blue making not as pale. He green eyes burning a hole in the back of Naruto's head as he disappeared in the trees at ground live. Yes, Kyuubi, you will die, and my master will become stronger. A couple of nights later. Alarms sounded through the hidden leaf, sending the few remained Chunin, Junin and graduated genin under out on the street of the Konoha. So many were gone on missions. Though no one outside of the village should know current strength of the village defenses, many of those genins thought as they followed the orders of their seniors. And in this case their assumptions were correct. Their defense from outside attack were strong, but sadly they were not prepared for an attack from within. A betrayal. Hokage-sama, Uzumaki Naruto is ordered, the lead of the 4 Anbu that brought Naruto into the Hokage's office said. Old man, what's going on? It's the middle of the night and the village is on alert, Naruto said, the annoyance in his voice clear. This is not the time for your attitude, Naruto. Hiruzen snapped, gaining Naruto's full attention. I have one question and one question only that you will answer truthfully, or so help you Kami. Did you take the scroll of sealing? Did I do what? Naruto asked deadpan. You heard me, Naruto. Did you steal the scroll of sealing? After all these years, after everything Naruto did to show that he was trying, that he was growing up, that he was listened to what the old man told him, how he came down and started to act like a true shinobi compared to the idiot he was then. And now he had a greater reason to do so, and the third knew that. Even with him, Naruto closed his eyes and shook his head, feeling his annoyance turning to all pure rage. No, Naruto said, his eyes closed as he took a breath. No, I did not take the scroll of sealing, old man, he continued as he opened his eyes. Both you and Kakashi taught me better than that, as well as the importance of that scroll. I would try to take it now. Then if you didn't take it, Naruto, then where were you? I was home. With all due respect Hokage-sama, one of the Anbu said, but Uzumaki Naruto when found was moving towards his apartment from somewhere. We are currently unaware of from where, but we are investigating this as part of the search for the scroll of sealing. The third Hokage's eyes grew cold with disappointment. I asked you to tell me the truth Naruto, but you. I was at home. Naruto repeated decisively looking Hiruzen directly in the eyes with dead seriousness as he ground out each word. The third stared at Naruto hard, his disappointment in his adapted grandson clear to see even as he listened to his words and his conviction. That Naruto was speaking with the conviction that this was not one of his games or old pranks, but truth about both the scroll and where he was coming from. Then the third's eyes went wide. He actually did it. He found the compound and gained entry. When did he do it? And for how long was he there? How many times did he go to the compound? What did he find there? Hiruzen had so many questions, but this wasn't the time nor place to ask them. And there was no guarantee that Naruto would give him these answers even if he ordered it due to the change in Naruto's personality as of late as well as the affect on the trust within their relationship. Send word that finding out where Uzumaki Naruto was coming from when he was out is no longer necessary. Hiruzen told the Anbu without looking at them, that has nothing to do with the location nor retrieval of the scroll of sealing. Naruto is not the one who stole the scroll. The Anbu team bowed and vanished without saying a word following the Hokage's orders. Why was blamed for stealing the scroll of sealing? Naruto questioned, his tone still being that of being between annoyance and anger. Eyewitness reports of seeing you running from the Hokage tower shortly before finding that the scroll of sealing had gone missing. Hiruzen answered, irritated, angry, this time for a different reason. Someone was using a transformation jutsu to frame the Kyuubi brat for the theft of one of the Hidden Leaf's most important items, which would call for the immediate execution for this treason, Naruto said darkly, his eyes cold. Yes, someone is framing you Naruto, Hiruzen said, angry about that revelation as well as sad, because of those eyes. A knock came from the door and was opened before the third could respond, showing an Anbu and a Chunin still within the village helping a third that was injured. Lord Third, Amino Iruka said, seeing the third Hokage before realizing that anyone else was in the Hokage's office, focusing what strength he had on the third to stay conscious and report. The culprit who stole the scroll of sealing wasn't Naruto. It was Mizuki using a transformation jutsu to look like Naruto. I tracked him thinking that he was Naruto in hopes that I could talk to him and saw him drop the transformation jutsu when he thought he had escaped. I confronted him, but I was almost killed by him and Iruka's body went limp as his shout blurred and more. It seems that Mizuki met with someone outside waiting for him at the village's edge ready to aid in his escape. The Anbu continued for Iruka. My team and I arrived as Iruka fell and Mizuki and the other made their escape. The rest of my time is currently in pursuit. In addition, Hokage-sama, we felt a strange chakra. That is why I brought Iruka here directly to report what he knows. I will send additional reinforcement and I'll go after Mizuki and whoever with him and bring back the scroll, Naruto said, interrupting the third, speaking with an unmistakable deadly tone. What can you do? The Chunin that helped with Iruka stammered without realizing it before he allowed his hatred of Naruto, the body of the Kyuubi, to take over. You just a genin still in the academy that from my understanding is barely average. How can you? The two of you take Iruka to the hospital now, Hiruzen said sternly, stopping the speaking Chunin. They did as Hiruzen ordered, the door closing behind their dismissal. Anbu. An Anbu dropped from the ceiling. Have Chunin Kurenai report here immediate for a high priority mission. Hi Hokage-sama. The Anbu vanished as quickly as they appeared. You have an idea of what I can do, old man? Naruto said with everyone gone, his voice still dark. With what you showed me and told me to continue training on its own. And I have more now. We're wasting time. I know that, Naruto. I know you're strong, stronger than what you've shown. Even now, speaking carefully, know that there may be ears nearby in this chaos. But you are still an academy genin with no experience other than D-rank team building mission and the very few C ranks I allowed Kakashi to take you on to get you out of the village when things were close to getting out of hand with the civilians and some of the other shinobis. The reminder didn't help Naruto's mood. This is completely different. This is an A-ranked mission. One that should be done by a Jonin, but with most of them out of the village on missions or now guarding the village I am sending you out. However, you are not a field ninja yet, so you will be under the direct command of a Chunin that will be on this mission with you. You will follow their orders without question. Is that understood? Hiruzen was serious and Naruto knew it. Even as Naruto was now. He was no match for the old man. Not for a Hokage. Suddenly, Naruto turned in the next moment for some reason in time to see Kurenai appeared. He neared his eye at both seeing her as well as questioning why he knew she was coming. Was that his instinct because he was angry? Why her? Naruto asked flatly. Because I need someone who's an experienced sensory as well as a chunin that I know will not take this opportunity to try and leave you out there for dead. Near the edge of the Hidden Leaf village. She was fast. Faster than he thought she would be even from someone the rank of a chunin from what Naruto had seen of others. He was able to keep pace staying behind her and to her right as ordered sure. Watching her it seemed that she wasn't going all out either. It was something in her motion. The fluidity of how she moved through the trees. The way in which her muscles moved beneath her cloths and chunin vest. Her muscles under her clothes? How the hell did he know that? Naruto shook his head as he heard a small buzz and turned away as a strong unpleasant scent hit his nose. He missed a limb losing speed recovering on a lower limb before painfully hitting the ground. Kurenai glanced his way the moment that he moved to return to where they were in their formation. Naruto, if you can't handle this I need to know it now, she said, her eyes a crimson that shined at night with the little light around them with a calm unmoving demeanor. You know the importance of what we are doing, but we have no idea of the danger. I can handle the mission, Naruto answered in his unchanged malice tone. If I couldn't, I wouldn't have told the old man that I would bring the scroll back. She eyed him for a moment before turning to make her next leap in the chain. Then focus more on the mission more than me. I'm not a threat to you, Naruto. It's part of my duty as this team's leader is to make sure that we both come back alive with the scroll. Whatever Naruto was going to say or do went unsaid or done as Kurenai signaled him that she had felt something. They were close. She could feel both the chakra signatures of Mizuki and of another with him, but it was different. The Mizuki she knew of chakra wasn't like this, it changed. Kurenai signaled again, this time tell Naruto to stop the two of them hiding in the trees. She noticed that his stealth was better than suggested. Even knowing that he was close by, she had to make an effort to notice him while her focus was on the signatures of Mizuki and the unknown. Neither of them currently no longer on the move. Waiting for others. Resting? Or making sure that they weren't being followed. There was no way they had of knowing, which was why she wanted to wait and try to get a handle on that chakra. Feeling it would have made her ill. If she were the same woman that she would have been. It was disturbed, dirty, poison, and every said that the Kyuubi's chakra was that. But she remembered that chakra, and in comparisons the Kyuubi's chakra was more of a flame, while this altered chakra was toxin. One that was now moving towards them at high speed. He appeared in front of her, no longer a man but a beast and a man. In stroke, Kurenai raised her arms to block, feeling the force of a punch that made shook her bones by the fist. The paw of a man now with the body of a tiger. The eyes more feral with a mop of shoulder length of white with blue hair were both Mizuki's, glaring as his tiger-like fangs shone in his mouth with his snare. He was bigger than usual, muscular upper body covered with tiger's fur and stripes. That chakra, she felt. She heard of this before but never saw it for herself. This was Mizuki's bipedal tiger transformation, something that was said he lost. She had to have a plan, but only if she could go undamaged from the sudden stop of hitting something, if she could adjust in time. First, as fast as she could. Tiger, boar, tiger, horse. At the last second before she could, from the ox, seal an arm wrapped around her waist, pulling her out of the path of what was behind her. It was Naruto. He pulled out of the way of being injured. Flower petal escaped. Both she and Naruto dissolving into flower petals that rushed to the transformed Mizuki, the petal vanishing with nothing by the formation of the tiger head seal. He sniffed the air and followed. Kurenai and Naruto land on the ground some distances away, in the leaves of being body flickered, taking Naruto off guard, forcing him to step shakenly for a second before regaining his balance. Kurenai only glanced at him again for a second, seeing his unsteadiness as well as recovery. He hadn't learned the body flicker yet, she realized, and sudden change in motion taken away from him had its effects. He took a defensive stance moments before Mizuki's signature came close and appeared. He dropped to the ground in a crunch with a head to the ground, whipping his head up like the beast he was imitating. This night could not go any better. The Kyuubi brat was brought to me. Mizuki growled, causing Kurenai the glare at his words going unseen by Naruto. Even if they two of them were well aware of the truth better Mizuki could ever know, to kill. Kill you? Such a pathetic creature that used your form. Killing him will be nothing. So, what are you waiting for? Show him. And you? Mizuki continued extended his hand to Kurenai as he rose to his full now taller height. You Yuhi Kurenai have already been gifted by our master Lord Orochimaru. Why don't you help kill the demon that took from you and then come with us with the scroll of sealing to Lord Orochimaru? Show him how far the gifts he has given you and allow him to study them as well as make them greater. Kurenai felt a coldness coming from within herself hearing those words, being reminded of how Orochimaru violated her by using her as a guinea pig, but… Ha ha ha. Naruto laughed manically, causing Kurenai to feel the change in his chakra becoming something cold and malice. You're running your mouth as if you could kill me. The heat of Naruto chakra fell into the mode of a single hand seal of bird. Wind release, air bullets. With 2 fingers to the side of his mouth he blew out air creating bullets of compressed air moving quicker than both Kurenai and Mizuki could see with their eyes. Kurenai felt it as Mizuki heard them with the use of the tiger ears atop his head. Mizuki dropped to the ground on all fours out of instinct, feeling the motion of the high-speed moving compressed wind flying over his body where his chest once was. The tree behind him exploding with 2 holes flying through its trunk as well as another while others went into the ground leaving holes with the potency of Naruto's chakra. Damn it, Kurenai swore as Mizuki charged at Naruto with the speed of a tiger. Naruto, she then shouted. The way in which he dispelled her genjutsu in this form would be a problem that would take her time to surpass. She dropped a hand to her shuriken pouch and with a flick of her wrist let lost 5 shuriken into Mizuki's body. Mizuki leapt into the air. Kurenai's hand seals flashed by unnoticed. Dog, hare, snake, ram. String bean binding illusion. Kurenai vanished from where she was as vines burst from the ground beneath the airborne Mizuki wrapping around his body claws inches from Naruto as Naruto jumped back with a burst of speed. A maniacal smile crossed his lips as the red eyes with the black slits shone in his eyes as hands formed hand seals in a quick practiced pace. Rat, tiger, dog, ox, rabbit, tiger. Fire release. Phoenix Sage fire technique. Naruto did the same as he did with the air bullet, firing a barrage of flames burning hotter than he saw before, supercharged with more chakra like the bullets. From the ground a large pod formed in the same moment, the base of the pod standing on top of a heavy trunk-like stalk before splitting opening. Kurenai jumped from it with kunai in hand, its tip and her eye focused on the back of Mizuki's neck. She would test if this transformation, fury and muscle would keep him alive. Her sense sudden flicker at the release of chakra and the look of flame come towards them both along with the flick of realizations in Naruto blood-red slit blood-lusted eyes. Kurenai dropped her weight on Mizuki's back and used as a springboard, allowing her to return high into the air. The flames hit Mizuki's body, sending a blood-curdling roar of pain in the air as Kurenai shifted her weight black, flipping away, landing on her feet away from Mizuki, forced to turn away. Move not to be downwind of the scent of burning fury and flesh, as well as the heat of the intense flames that was killing. Killed Mizuki. She looked to Naruto, feeling the bloodlust within the air, but his body language even with the eyes of the Kyuubi and more of it chakra flowing through Naruto. He was in shocked, frozen almost, at odds with himself. She could see it without touching him and using her ability. This was his first kill. And it was a brutal one that. Naruto. Kurenai jumped, moving again, turning her body to face the same direction Naruto faced, moving closer to where Naruto was with her kunai up in defensive position, alerted by her chakra sense and the movement of the one Mizuki met. Pathetic. Killed so quickly after regaining what was lost through being burned to death. The voice of a male came from the confines of a hooded long dark gray coat heading their features. Their face was completely obscured by his hood and the way the male lowered his head. He was a question, but what was important here was what he had on his back. Return the scroll, Kurenai said flatly, watching the strangers ever move. The figure didn't respond, with his body facing in such a way that said he was looking Naruto's direction. You were blessed by our master. The male then said, now paying attention to Kurenai with a turn. With this scroll and you with us, our master will become greater than he is now. But first, that sickening chakra she sensed from the transformed burnt fur, hair, burnt skin and muscles. Dead Mizuki irradiated the area as the man. the creature in front of them transformation in an explosion that sent his hood back. It was a pale-skinned male with no hair atop his head, nor on his face. His eyes were almost blank as black mark-like flames shot across his face. At the same moment his normally proportioned body became a grotesque abomination, with one side of his body growing larger than the other, of his shoulder down to his limbs, ripping the sleeve of his coat to piece. The limb was no longer a human's arm but an appendage with a trio of different-sized tentacles at the end of it. His upper body and midsection also became too larger for what he was, as a way to support the alteration of his arm. The moment the transformation came, his pupils' eyes affixed on Naruto, and the moved with the speed of a jonin with ease for his deformed size and shape. "Naruto!" Kurenai shouted in warning, seeing the genin, her teammate on this mission, still in shock. She placed her hand in the hand seal of the tiger to mold her chakra in her most practiced technique as quickly as she could. Demonic illusion. Tree-binding death. Kurenai felt her chakra fill the area and invade the male's mind, and the second it did, a burst of the dark chakra dispelled the genjutsu. Shit, she swore, focusing her chakra, starting to mold it again, her hands flashing. Rat. Dog. Ox. Water release. Water whip, she shouted, pulling the waster of the moisture in the air, forming the whip. At the moment was too late. The male mutated arm sliced through the air with a downward slash, sending Naruto's blood in the air with deep gaze of sending a surge through Kurenai that made her move without thought, tapping into her near full speed as she channeled lightning chakra through the formed water whip. What the hell are you doing, you pathetic excuse for a shinobi? Frozen by the death of another trying to kill you. Move. It was too late as Naruto felt the pain of his flesh being sliced through with the heat of chakra staring at muscles as he moved. He stumbled and dropped to one knee at the damage. You damn fool. Naruto's consciousness slipped with an ungodly surge of power, ripping through what was damage as well as his chakra coils, sending a flame of red from his stomach through and out of his body. And as those flames took shape, his sense come back in a haze of red. What was left of his usual conscious mind registered the kick of the kunoichi, sending what attacked him flying as she held a weapon. A whip of water. Kurenai's whip smacked through the air and feed into the flesh of the creature once man, with the force of condensed water crash on a shore, breaking the remains of a ship, sent a growl through the air of surprise and pain. Pain turning to rage as the male quickly learned that he was not as all-powerful as he thought. That what his master Lord Orochimaru had given him. One of his most loyal service was incomplete, able to take damage from a shinobi beneath him. One that even if she was blessed with gifts by Lord Orochimaru did not have his teachings and guidance to use as they should. He lashed out with power of the gift that was once his arm, charged with chakra, and slashed at the chest of Kunoichi with bloodlust. Knowing he could only maim a specimen of his master to bring her back with his other price. His eyes flashed when she leapt back from his reach, feeling his limb as well as the chakra miss the woman's body by inches as her crimson eyes bore into him. His darted down to the hand that held the water whip as he land and swing it upward with the force of her entire body behind it, and felt and slice through his coat and flesh once again as he did with the useless body that was with her. The male felt the pain this time as well as the stunning sensation surging through his body, stronger than the first few times that lightning chakra-laced water whip stroke. The male moved anyway, only to have his eyes flash wide again as the woman caught his motions and leapt in the air, sending a kick to the side of the head. Pain shot through him as his head stayed attached to his body as the power of the kick sent him flying. She was gifted with strength given to her by the master. Kurenai landed and watched as the male flowed through the air and moved when her chakra sense made her move again, moving to a position where she could see both the male as he landed, Naruto as he rose. Blood staining his cloths from his wound as he stood in an almost trance. If the blood was still flow, she could not tell as his body. His aura, the blue that was his chakra, was overcome by red, and that red was around his body from a figure. Long ears atop his head and a pair of tails swing around his back like foxes. His actual hand fingernails extend like claws. What she could see of his face in his stupor, the whisker marks on his face became more defined. She braced herself, lifting her arm, not holding her whip up in defense, and sent chakra to the soles of her sandals as she sensed the surge in chakra before Naruto threw his head back, unleashing a primal roar to the heavens, exerting a portion of the Kyuubi's power. His eyes came back down his mouth, showing his elongated teeth, fangs in his mouth as he dropped down to all fours and looked around the area like a beast. He only glanced at her way and looked past her to the male that was finally getting up. And charge. Kill him. Naruto's speed was easily that of a Jonin when he appeared in front of the mutated male, surprising him with the heat of a tail made of chakra around Thing neck and a punch to the face. The punch moved him, but it didn't got far as he lashed out only out of reflect. The survival instinct to stay alive took control of the tentacle his body, knowing that he shouldn't take another punch like first. Something primal sending fear through this should have been instructional body as the tentacles fought with the chakra tail. Naruto's next punch came, but this time the male just barely caught the blow with his still human hand and paid for it with the burning of the malice chakra of the Kyuubi. Out of sheer pain the male and threw a kick at the monster that he saw chest, only to have that foot burned by the shearing heat and power of the Kyuubi's chakra. Another growl escaped the male's mouth before he lounged back, drawing something deep from the depth of his belly. Out of the instinct that flowed through his mind and the chakra of the Kyuubi, the tail of the Kyuubi cloaked the go of its grasp as well as kicked away from the altered male. He jumped to the air as a spray of liquid flowed from the male's mouth, sending the stench of acidic venom into the air that burned at Naruto's sensitive senses as well as drew Kurenai's attention to the smell as she moved to flank. The ground where Naruto was hit the ground eating at it. The male turned as quickly as he could and made a move to escape in a flicker. The sound of tree limbs breaking drew Kurenai's attention to the sky as she saw Naruto fly through the air in a burst of speed. She didn't hesitate to follow, leaping to an unbroken limb as she dispelled her water whip. Launching forward, she watched the destruction on display before her. The Kyuubi cloaked Jinchurki crushed through limbs and trees, locked on the target of the one that caused him harm. Naruto missed a second time before retreating away as the agent of Orochimaru venom again to force more distance between he and Naruto before changed direction to gain more distance. Both Kurenai and Naruto changed direction, Kurenai seeing that the agent worried more about Naruto than her. That would be his greatest mistake. She molded her chakra once more with her focus on Orochimaru's agent, now far more vulnerable, and once again place her hands in the tiger hand seal. Demonic. Naruto changed direction as if he were drawn to her, leaving their target to continue forcing her to kick off a tree in midair, barely missing the slash of his claws. Why? Her aim was focused as always, leaving Naruto untouched by her jutsu. But the way he attacked said he felt it. Felt as if he were the target? Naruto, Kurenai shout harshly as she moved in midair, feeling the heat and power of the Kyuubi's chakra passing by the bare skin of her face. His response was only a growl and glare as his passed and rest his attack by bouncing off of a nearby tree coming at her from behind, and he blind spot. Or what would be a blind spot if it weren't for her chakra sense and experience tell her otherwise. With a quick glance down, Kurenai's body flickered away, moving back to the ground and moving to a clearing that she saw while they were on the move. She entered, finding that though it was a clearing, it was not completely empty, as a structure made of wood stood near the almost completely opposite side of where she entered the clearing. She felt nothing coming from it, and by the way it looked, even though it was still standing and could provide some protection from the weather, was abandoned with some visible disappear. That was good thing, as that meant that no one would come home while she was in the middle of facing an enraged Jinch. A sharp pain shot through her head as she heard and felt Naruto approach, but was stunned in place with a hand to her head as he appeared from the tree line, rushing at her without pause. He rose from his position of running on all fours in time to reach out with a clawed hand in the last steps of his charge, and with that hand grasped her neck. Kurenai's eyes hardened and she focused on strengthening her body as best she could, feel the force of their munition as Naruto's claws worked to dig into her flesh, marking it. Some of the air in her body left quicker than she wished as she was forced back, first crashing through the door of the structure. "Naruto," she said harder. They stopped in the middle of the room they stood in, covered in dust that meant little to the situation, as Naruto stood there holding her in midair with primal eyes of a beast. "Naruto, what are you doing?" She struggled, holding on better than anyone should have in the situation, as with the claws breaking her flesh also burned at her skin with the chakra. "You know who I am, don't you?" He tightened the hold on her neck. "Naruto, I wasn't trying to harm you a few moments ago, I was trying to stop the man that we were facing. Don't you remember? The reason why we were sent out here." The strength on his grip increased as the heat of malice echoed through the air. Through him, along with the want to kill. To kill what was in front of him. Everyone. The eyes that looked at him with stare of hate. Of disgust. As if he himself should have never been born, never been there. None of them deserved to live. "Naruto, this is not you. That's not the person that you are." All they want to do was hurt him. You're kind-hearted. Kurenai continued, listening to what she felt of the echo she felt when they first met as well as what she felt now. She realized as the hardened look in her eyes softened. Through the maelstrom, through mixture of emotions rushing through from and through Naruto, it was difficult for Kurenai to wade through it all while also pushing her body's condition high enough to hold against his physical attack. That, along with the growing of her powers, which was what drew her to where she was now. Going past the rage, the hate that were strong, acting as a layer of protection and fuel like the cloak, was as it was being used as a weapon. And what this anger was protect was what she felt before. I know that you were alone, felt betrayed and betrayed more than once in your life. So, you and, not only was Naruto afraid of being hurt, but beneath Naruto's feeling of hurt and loneliness, or more so next to it, she felt that feelings of another. One adding to his feelings of rage, of being betrayed, used of, and here afraid. I can see. Kurenai struggled with a gasp, feeling her consciousness start to slip from a combination of the lack of air along with the battle with her concentration fight to hold the damage to her body back while reading through waves of emotion, it in the Kyuubi as well. I low growl rumbled. 1,000 years, Kurenai said, her crimson eyes closing to down to slits, of being alone, only having whatever she was feeling saying was fading from her mind, but one thing came to her lips from somewhere. Both your chakra and the Kyuubis could be something beautiful. And together something that could radiant. Naruto's head twitched to the side in confusion as the Kyuubi eyes shone something. Naruto, Kurenai said, the look in her eyes a moment ago gone. Both of the opened again as she realized the Shion reached out with the wrist of the hand that was holding her in the air. I understand some of what you have been through. The two of us are similar, carrying something that neither of us asked for or wanted. But you are stronger than the anger and pain that others place on you. I know you are, I can feel that in heart. As well as know you. And you Kyuubi can recognize that there are people that care about you. And those that will. She reached out with her other hand, slowly ignoring the pain of that Kyuubi chakra trying to burn another part of her flesh. Until her fingers came close to Naruto's face. She paused when he flinched. An instinctual reaction. Something from Naruto himself, Kurenai was sure. After a second she continued, with the cloak raging around his body became less the what it was with the form of a fox with two tails became an aura of red chakra. Still exerting a heat that burned that didn't stop her from touching his whiskered marked cheeks. Please Naruto, don't let that pain overtake you. You are not alone. The squeezing of around her neck had stopped some time ago as the eyes that were looking at her still shone the red with the slits now turned to completion. And then the compilation becomes something else. A confused, almost innocent look as she was lowered to the ground slowly with the cloak that remained drawing back into the source. Naruto's eyes flashed as the red became blue with the sound of an exhaled breath as he stepped back. Good, Kurenai managed before things went black. It was as if things were going on slow motion after Naruto heard what Kurenai had said, her voice strained as if she could speak well at all. And it was clear as day way as she stood on her feet, slumped as she looked at him, with the flesh around her neck showed burns. The same type of burns that he was on her hands before she watched her eyes close and her body begin to fall to one side. Naruto moved without think and grabbed her, falling with her, taking most of the contact to the floor with his knees while his arms caught her body. Kurenai-senpai, he called out as the woman laid in his arms, saying nothing nor moving. He laid her on the floor, feeling that something was more than wrong as he leaned down to hear for her breath with his sensitive hearing. And heard nothing. He moved down to her chest and listened closely for the rhythmic thump of a person beating heart. And heard silence. No, 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 he repeated in disbelief. I need to remember what I was taught. He had no medical skills or training. Only the knowledge of the basics to try to keep another person alive or to bring them back from the each. He placed his hand over her chest and pumped his palms against, counting out loud to keep his shaking body reeling mind on the task in front of. When down with compression without thinking about, he leaned forward, opening her mouth slightly and held her nose as he put his mouth to her and breathed his breath into her lungs. With no reaction he started the routine again. Chest compressions. Mouth to mouth. Nothing. He went on for what it seemed like forever, feeling the desperation building within his mind and in his body. He had skilled one person already, and in such a brutal fashion that it took everything as well as the need to save her, stopping him from being sick. True, this was a mission and he did what was necessary, but the way he did it. It was wrong. It was too much. And now Now the person that he was to work with, that he was spoused to follow as his commander, was laying lifeless before him due to him losing control. He knew what he did. The memories come through a fog that was lifted in his mind, as well as realizing that he had been hearing whispers. "Come on Kurenai-senpai," Naruto pleaded. He pushed harder with his compression, feeling a resistance he did expect, sensing that how physically stronger Kurenai body was. This was the strength of a chunin? "Come on," he pleaded again. Damn it, damn it, damn it. Still no response. No matter what he was doing, he couldn't get her to take another breath or to get her heart to beat again. He took the life of a comrade. The life of someone that was innocent. Someone that he knew before this had intention to do him harm, but in the end didn't. The one that showed him the truth. Showed him what he carried. What he carried. "I know you can hear me, you damn fox," Naruto shouted. "You know what the hell is going on right now, and because of—" He paused, heeding Kurenai's words from when he was lost in the power of the Kyuubi, "because of what you carried mixing with my pain. I want to save her, and I don't have the ability to do so. So, help me, you damn fox." Naruto's mindscape. "I want to save her, and I don't have the ability to do so. So, help me, you damn fox." Within the darkness and the depths of the sewer that came from the emotion of Naruto mind, with red pipes running down the walls of the many pathways. Maze with maybe an inch or two of water flowing across the floor, showing nothing but black beneath the otherwise clear water. So many paths, but the path of interest lead to a large opened area with a large cage with tag found high at the center of doors to that cage. The Kyuubi trapped within simply growled as it laid lazy on its front paws, as its long ears laid fold downward, its eyes close as his tails laid at rest, as if he heard nothing. What was it to him that he, weakling container, was in a panic because one of the pathetic ants that were his people could not survive his power? The power of the nine-tailed fox demon, the power of the Biju. Another that feel due to his wrath. Through slit eyes, the flow of his chakra through that of his container did give him awareness of the world beyond his place in the seal. Once again, this container showed that he was less than an idiot than the Kyuubi thought the first time he was able to sense what little he could of the outside world. And now with their chakras mixed more, he could see what the container saw and heard. And container focus as he whined on the human female. Another worthless being that was beneath him. Beneath him, but at the very least was able to hold her own against his power. Even with the burns on the flesh of her neck and part of her face, she still held on, going to the distance to injury herself farther. She was an idiot, or was she something else? The Kyuubi growled in frustration, seeing the woman through his container's eyes, and for a first time in a long time he felt real world. Naruto started another round of compression, his own heart pounding hard in his ears, feeling like it was about to burst out of his chest. He jumped with he felt a surge from somewhere, learning back from Kurenai's limp body, having no idea where that surge was from. Was it him? Was it from her? Was it from something in the shack that he didn't see or heard why they were in there? Was it the— Kurenai inhaled sharply, the muscles of her body forcing her to partially sit up for a second, just long enough for Naruto to move without think and catch before she fell for the second time that night. "Kurenai-senpai," Naruto said with. He didn't what he felt, only that his heart wasn't about to burst out of his chest anymore. The only response from the Kamachi Chunin was her heavy breathing, as well as a flinch of pain as she did so with her head turned away from Naruto. All he could do was watch. Wait, hope? Was that something that— The heaviness of her breathing had started to slow bit by bit before after another eternity it slowed to normal. Actually, slightly below. "Naruto," Kurenai said, not with a question but statement of fact, surprising the blonde as she said his name without turning to look at him or even opening her eyes. In the matter of a few more seconds she did both, opening her eyes slowly while she took far longer to turn over in Naruto's arms, resting on her back with her head being supported by Naruto's hand. She ignored the pain as she moved, then relaxed as much as she could once she was repositioning and looked up into Naruto's blue eyes. She didn't need to sense what his eyes showed. A look of relief, regret, hope, expectancy, and fear. Kurenai let her eyes look at Naruto softly, feeling that he was starting to calm, and waited long enough for him to come to a reasonable conclusion. She held the softness for a second more before she allowed the stern coldness in her eyes cover the softness. "Uzumaki Naruto," she said sternly, causing Naruto to visible flinch, "you do understand that this is an important and dangerous mission? One that puts our home in danger if we fail to recover the scroll of sealing. Not only did you act with unnecessary aggression, but you froze because you were unaware of the repercussion for your actions. Do that you were gravely injured and was overtaken by the malice within you as well as the malice flowing through the Kyuubi's chakra. His emotions were still all over the place, she could feel. But she hoped that what she felt beneath it made it clear that she was not trying to hurt him. That she was trying to teach him and help him focus to go forward. With my current condition I am unable to go after the scroll of sealing and we have lost enough time, she continued. Uzumaki Naruto, as team leader I am ordering you to continue the mission and located scroll of sealing and retrieve it. Naruto's eyes narrowed. You made mistakes. Mistakes that have had costs. So, learn from them and continue with the mission. What about you? What about me? The mission comes first, Kurenai stated, remembering the way in which she was taught in the field. You're hurt, Naruto said, having some strength returning to his voice, answering the hope that what Kurenai was feeling through everything in him was trying to make its way out. Are you questioning my orders, Genin? She said with authority. You know the rules, and those that break the rules are scum. But those that forsake their friends or teammates are worse than scum. Naruto finished both defiantly and decisively. He did listen to Kakashi and did adapt some of the better qualities of his philosophy, at least in Kurenai's opinion. I don't want to leave you hurt and vulnerable, Kurenai-senpai. And I didn't mean to hurt me, Kurenai said in an even tone. A part of you did want to hurt me, Naruto. She waited as he looked away in shame before he turned back to face her, showing that strength that she was feeling, what she was relying on to get him through. At least for now. A part of you did that because you were afraid of me. You were afraid when you sensed the strength of my genjutsu, thinking that I would do what I did when we first met, invading your mind. Or worse. His eyes did not deny the truth she spoke. If you don't wish to leave me alone and vulnerable, you are one of the few people that would not have to in this situation. Naruto's confusion turned into realization and question of how she knew. Kurenai not give him an answer to how she knew when she continued. Create a shadow clone and leave it here to watch over me. I know that you have the chakra left to make one safely. I can sense your chakra as well as how much you have. Question, feelings, responsibilities. Naruto had all these but only had time for one thing, and he could see that she was no longer going to take a no or an argument with that cold or more focused look in her red eyes and on her faces said so. He laid her down gently and stood up before taking a few steps back as the two of them watched one another, neither breaking eye contact, as Naruto brought up his hand, making two of his fingers on each hand into blades and placing those blades into a cross and molded his chakra. Shadow Clone Jutsu. In a puff of smoke another Naruto appeared with his back to the original. Take care of her, Naruto told the clone before he turned and head out the door. As Naruto left, he never saw what she saw. The clone that she was left alone with wasn't the same as the real Naruto. The one that slowly started to kneel down next to her and extended a hand had elongated fingernails like claws. The whisker marks on its face were deeper, more defined, as were the fangs in its mouth. And its eyes were blood red with black slits in them. This clone looked at her sideways as it placed its hand between her, resting it on her chest as it stiffed the air. The expressing that it gave off was one of being perplexed at what he saw, smelled, and whatever else his other sense could tell him. Was it power it sensed? Was it something else that was foreign to him completely? Or something that was somehow familiar to him? There was nothing that Kurenai could do to find the answers to these questions. Even if she did feel the emotional ebb and flow as she did with Naruto. Senji, were they one of the ones that added to you pain? Kurenai asked without fear. If they did or not, either way I am not truly a Senji. Their DNA was grafted into me by a snake that walks on two legs. The original Naruto springboarded deeper into the forest away from the clearing and shack, putting whatever other thoughts and feelings he had down, focusing on his senses, looking for the man. The one that stroked him and forced him to tap into the power of the Kyuubi's chakra. It was a weird sensation that flow in his sense, as it wasn't that instinct that he had and had been developing over that last few months now that he knew of it. This one was completely different. He wasn't hearing, smelling, or seeing remnants or clues of where the man was going. Naruto believed that he was following the sense of the male's chakra, able to identify it. And that chakra was nasty. Compared to his own that he felt. Hell, of that of the Kyuubis that he was now aware of was nothing in terms of how corrupt this man's chakra was. Naruto's hand dropped to one of his pouches, checking his equipment. He hadn't used much at the start of this mission. But beforehand, before he was brought before the Hokage, he had practice within the training room of the compound or more manner. He only had half the kunai and shuriken on hand than he should. No paper bombs, smoke or otherwise. So how could he deal with the ninja that had the scroll? His chakra levels were still reasonable. And he had his justice skills that he never tried to use against the male after. After Naruto had killed Mizuki, Naruto stopped on a limb find the male that he and Kurenai had fought, and he seemed to have slowed. The man was no longer jumped through the trees, he was below Naruto, moving on the ground, running on foot. Trying to run, as from what Naruto could see in the dim light from above showed that the male was running abnormal beyond the way in which his body portions would cause. He was hurt, but he and Kurenai did the male damage. Naruto continued his pursuit, speeding up, his mind going quickly as he tried to remember what the third Hokage and Kakashi had taught him. He had the advantage, so be aware of anything. The level of this man was unknown. And even if it were, it would be only the start, as the abilities he showed were behind the normal. Like Naruto's. He shook his head and moved quicker, relying on his ability to hide his presence now parallel to the male. Naruto throw a pair of shuriken, take as careful aim as possible as he targeted the shoot of the male and succeed in drawing blood while giving away his presence. However, the true goal of throwing the shuriken was achieved as the blade cut through the rope holding the scroll of sealing to the male's back, allowing it to hit the ground. Naruto was already gone from his position on the ground and picking up the scroll at his top speed, not holding back here at all outside of the village for no one to see it. He heard the scream of the male, a loud swear, as Naruto disappeared back into the forest with the receiver of the scroll achieved. He kept going. He felt the male following him as he worked to retie the cut rope securing the scroll on his own back. When done, Naruto went to the air and turned. This needed to be done to protect them and the leaf. He molded his chakra and formed his hands into the bird seal. The male come into view with eyes burning with rage through his mutated limb, forward lashing down. Wind release, air bullet. Naruto fired a single wind bullet, his aim between the male eyes and through his head. Naruto turned as he saw the male fall, seeing the look in the male's eyes go blank as he dropped. He turned and head back to where he could feel Kurenai's chakra. Something far better than the males that Naruto just killed. A few minutes later, he dropped down into the clearing, feeling nothing out of the ordinary, as well as no one around other than the person that had led him back here. Alert, Naruto approached the shack. He reached in his pouch and drew a kunai in defense position, feeling the sudden surge of a number of chakras before they appeared around him. Uzumaki Naruto, Hokage-sama has ordered you and Yuri Kurenai's return immediately, said an Anbu with a mask that he recognized. As well as the others. Naruto's eyes widened as he witnessed Kurenai appear in the doorway of the shack, walking on her own, even if she had to use the doorframe to remain standing once she stopped moving. As the wounds on her neck, face and hands seemed to be healed. He felt his shadow clone dispel at that moment. The mission is complete, she told him, her tone almost the same as it was when he left, but it was something else he thought he heard. Listen to them and let's go home. Hokage Tower, Hokage Office. An Anbu appeared before the Hokage with word of the arrival of the Anbu teams. He sent out momentary arrival before his office was filled with a dozen more along with Kurenai and Naruto through the use of body flicker. 2 of the 12 immediately moved to flank Hiruzen as he sat behind his desk, while the one that told him of their arrival rose and moved to the door side of the Hokage's desk in front and to the side of it as another Anbu appeared next to the first. Naruto moved carefully, aware of the tension within the room as well as feeling his own fatigue. But this fatigue was not the normal kind. Hokage-sama, though I may be stepping out of place for speaking first, he said with a respectful bow, as ordered. He continued lifting the rope that was holding the scroll of sealing on his back over his head and off his shoulder. Mission complete. Retrieval of the scroll of sealing has succeeded. Naruto held the scroll out in both hands, and with a glance from the Hokage, the Anbu that was first in the room when they arrived and the second that appeared when he moved, took the scroll from Naruto's hold. Take scroll to the vault as discussed, Hiruzen said, the man's tone as serious as Naruto had ever remembered hearing it when he was that close to him. The Anbu body flickered away. Yuri Kurenai, Uzumaki Naruto, I congratulate you in your success of retrieving the scroll of sealing and thank you both. Also, due to the unforeseen difficulties of the mission, I am upgrading it to an S rank with appropriate paid placed in your accounts and notation in both of your records. Thank you, Hokage-sama, Kurenai said with a bow, her voice somewhat strained. Thank you, Hokage-same, Naruto followed, bowing as well, his own tone more subdued than usual even compared to his recent change in attitude. When he rose to look at the Hokage, Naruto also saw the eyes of the Hokage filled with displeasure and pain. Uzumaki Naruto, as of this moment you are suspended from the academy and will be placed on house arrest, Hiruzen said. Hokage-sama, Kurenai started automatically gaining a glare that told her if she said another word she would regret it. She saw the stare in the Hokage's eyes when she knew the look on her face took on a look of opposition to what he was doing that she was sure would cost her. But at the moment she didn't care. She wanted to protect Naruto. Kitsune stepped forward and placed a hand on Kurenai's shoulder, telling her friend to back down. After a moment she did by looking over to Naruto. I saw everything that happened once you found Mizuki. Hiruzen told both of them, waiting until Kurenai turned back to him. Including your first kill, Naruto, all the way to your loss of control, he said, looking at Naruto, until Kurenai sent you on to continue the mission and are returning to the clearing. So, he knew. He saw it all through the viewing crystal. The third shook his head. I made the mistake of not doing something sooner when I and everyone else close to you started to see the changes you were going through, from getting more aggressive, to pushing away your friends. And now I will do something about it, Naruto. While you are on suspension and under house arrest, you will be going under mental and emotional evolution as well as therapy. In addition, the seal will be checked far closer than it has been, which includes evaluation its strength along with if it needs to be tightened. The expression on Naruto's face was tired. As ordered, Hokage-sama, he said with a bow, showing no resistance. Escort Naruto to his home and begin house arrest protocols. Hi Hokage-sama. Rung through the office as Naruto was approached by a peer of Enbu, each taking him into custody before body flickering with him away, followed by two more. The rest in the room vanished other than the two that flanked the Hokage, as well as Kitsune still resting a hand on Kurenai's shoulder, who was not letting what just happened go. He tried to kill you, Kurenai, Hokage said, sitting back in his seat, rubbing his temple, his eyes closed as his tone had softened. Hokage-sama, he just experienced his first kill. I saw it in his face and in his body. Even with the aggressive state, it shocked him to the core. He was also gravely injured, and when he turned on me in his state, it was out of fear. As well as having to take another life once he gained control. Punishing him is not the answer. Hiruzen turned to her, looking at her especially with those last few statements causing him to exert some effort to keep his emotions in check. His aggression is the main reason why I am placing these restrictions on him, as well as seeing Naruto's reaction to his first kill as well as everything else, he told her. Which calls for someone to talk to him on its own, and I am aware that he possibly had to kill the one that Mizuki met to escape back to the clearing, or he would have been there when or close to it when the Anbu arrived. This isn't punishment, this is intervention. The fire in Kurenai's eyes didn't go unmissed by Hiruzen. Then let me help him, she said. The third looked at her sideways, even with the flames he saw. You sense a lot from him during this whole thing, didn't you? That's why you brow up him being afraid of you just now. And then, yes, she answered, I felt a lot from him. And I believe because of that I believe I might be one of the best people able to help him through this. Or you might be getting caught up into something because of your abilities. Kurenai, you might be influenced by Hokage-sama, she interrupted, getting a look from the two Anbu next to Hiruzen as well as a tighter squeeze of her shoulder by Kitsune that would have hurt her or anyone else if it weren't for the fact that Kurenai was letting some of her strength loss. You know my empathic abilities better than anyone outside of myself. Have I ever once shown to be placed under the control of another? We're not talking about other people, he answered, letting her actions pass. We are talking about the Nine Tails. And I am talking about Naruto, not the Kyuubi.
That's all for now. If you enjoy this video, then please like, share and do comments.